This video here I'm going to be doing a voiceover for, so yeah, I'll probably talk a little bit about the actual session itself and then a little bit about some other topics related to fitness or back or training, etc. But starting off the session here with a neutral grip mag pull down. So on the old lat pull down machine, this one here, almost maxing it out, but not quite. Still got a couple kind of weight stacks to go there, but yeah, I'm feeling good on my lat pull downs recently. In fact, when I say recently, for a very long time, I feel like those have become very, very good and strong for me. Mag grip, neutral grip, anything like that, I'm a big fan of. I do like the wide bar and I do try and alternate with that, but there will be periods of time where I'll just focus primarily on that neutral grip, and I think that works very well for me. So if you guys haven't tried neutral grip pull downs, definitely give it a go. It might actually completely transform your back development. And I've had some clients in the past who I've advised to do this with, and I've demonstrated it or I've sent them a video, etc., and had them give it a go. And honestly, the feedback has been fantastic. So single arm stuff as well. You don't see me do it too much in this video, but that is something that I would recommend you try as well if you hit a plateau or you're not enjoying your back training. But yeah, here you can see I'm still going nice and heavy and the movement is fluid. Like I'm not swinging back too much. I'm just getting a little bit of momentum there and an arch in my back, which has allowed me to really pull down through my elbows into my lats and just get a crazy connection into my back. So yeah, I think this machine and this movement for me is definitely one of my favorites, and I do prefer to start with it. I feel if I do this later in the session, then that's when I prefer to do a slightly different attachment, such as a wide bar or maybe a even wider neutral grip. But yeah, this one here, starting off strong, is a great way to kick off the back session. So for volume, I usually only do about 2 or 3 sets on this, and my rule of thumb is usually do 2 sets, and then if I'm feeling good, I'll do a third. And I find that often with that, I do end up doing a third, but it's just about not having that pressure to do all 3 sets. But those 2 sets that I do, I'm making sure that they're absolutely crazy. So after the pull downs, moving on to a lat pullover machine, which again, I have progressed quite a lot within the last few months of filming this. But honestly, it's just a really, really cool machine to be able to use because not a lot of gyms have it. So it's not often used by people in my gym either, and I've been able to go really heavy. So I think my max weight is about 70 kg each side, so total 140 kg for around a set of like 10, and then second set I usually drop off quite a lot to sort of 9 or 8 reps. But yeah, I just find this one's fantastic. So what I was going to talk about a little bit is just kind of other muscles and the fatigue that you can get from a certain training session. So in this one, for example, I do get a little tiny bit of tricep soreness sometimes, as you can see when I'm pulling the weight down and in front of me, slightly engage my triceps, because that's almost impossible not to do when the weight's so heavy. But the alternative would be for me to lower the weight and then do more reps. But for me, I just way more enjoy this exercise when I'm doing it, and the back development and the back soreness I get is actually crazy. So it completely outweighs my tricep fatigue. And also, I make sure, or I try and ensure at least, that my tricep training isn't the day after. So that way I can at least recover a little bit before I go and do some arm training. So just something to think about with you guys. If you are finding that a certain exercise is causing you too much soreness, then perhaps try a different approach there. But what I'm also trying to say is if you find that it does slightly impact other muscle groups, but ultimately, well, in my case, lats is very important to me compared to my triceps, which is still very high up on the list, but compared to other muscle groups and being realistic about how much it actually fatigues my triceps, it's really not an issue. So yeah, it's just a few things to weigh up there. And ultimately, this is for me a really fun and enjoyable, good progressive exercise. So yeah, I'm aiming to continue to do this actually all the way through, because again, I'm grateful to have this in my gym. So until I go traveling, I'm going to consistently try and keep this in my back days. Not every single back day, because I will say that also core does get taxed a little bit, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in the future of this video. So basically, when I do this exercise here, I always try and use a belt because that really eliminates a lot of core engagement. So another tip there, you'll see the belt is really tightly wrapped around the bench, and it's basically like having kind of a seat belt. Now, I'm 99% sure that this machine used to have a seatbelt attachment, but I think it must have just broken off. or I'm just thinking of a different machine. But as I said, there's not many of them, so I doubt it is a different one. But I've basically just managed to do that for myself here. So for you guys that maybe have access to this, or you've got a similar machine, even a leg extension, you can use this kind of tip on. It just avoids your abs coming into play. Now you'll have people saying, oh, well, why don't you want to just train your abs? And, surely it's good to fatigue your abs there. Well, yes, you could argue that, but ultimately, again, it's just taken away from the training that you could be putting into your back. So for triceps, there's not really a way around that other than to drop the weight, which is not what I want to do. But for core, there is a slight way around that, which is to use a belt. So, yeah, that's something I would recommend. At least try it out. You don't have to do it every single set. It might affect your breathing a little bit. It might take a bit of you getting used to. And the other thing is, don't have it ridiculously tight so you literally are struggling to breathe, because that's just not going to help. So, yeah, just tight enough to where your core's kind of locked in, but mainly so you're actually kept in place and you don't have to worry so much on those muscle stabilizers and keeping yourself central. You can actually just focus on driving your elbows forward and then down past your kind of obliques, your core and your chest as tight as you can, and then stretching back up again while still remaining in the seat. So another tip, which I don't know if I've actually used at this point when I film this, but I've started to do this very much more recently, is to actually put a step beneath the machine there, and that just gives you a little bit more of a kind of support to put your feet on, because this one's quite high up from the floor and I'm tall as well. So, for some people that must be really, really difficult. But after this exercise, moving on to a single arm pull through, which, yeah, is a nice, very, very nice single arm exercise. Again, moving on from this session here, recently now I'm able to do this quite comfortably with the full stack plus a 5 kilogram weight. And honestly, I think subconsciously I'm actually stopping myself from going up so much in weight, because I know that it's very difficult to add weight on this machine. So one of my mates said that I could use his gym pin, but I've actually forgot to ask him for that recently. So I do want to see if I can grab that, because it'd be really fun to see actually how heavy I can go for a set of like 8 to 10, rather than really, really slow 15 reps, etc. But yeah, still, nonetheless, at this point in time, I wasn't even able to go full stack at this speed. I definitely could have done if I really tried to throw the weight around, but this exercise for me feels better to do it slow and controlled. So yeah, I do go for a few partial reps at the end, and that's purely because I've reached concentric failure, really. So I'm just trying to get a bit more blood in the lats there and get some volume up. But yeah, overall feels good. The setup of the bench is around 45 degrees. Sometimes I will oil that a little bit. So, just perhaps experiment for yourself. It might depend on what size bench you have, how wide it is, or how close you want to go to the machine, etc. There's all sorts of things that you can change based on your anatomy, which is one of the good things about cables and dumbbells, free weights, etc. Machines are absolutely great, and for most people they do work very, very well, especially if you're starting off in the gym and you don't have too much knowledge. You can really focus on doing that. But yeah, for other people, it's nice to have a bit of differentiation and personalization within the actual workout itself, and especially how you operate a piece of equipment. So this is a really good example of how I'm just trying to drive my elbow down, and the stretch that I'm getting as well is literally crazy. So full range of motion all the way through. You can see there, I'm actually starting to get some striations in my lats at this point, because I was really starting to get lean, and even the tops of my serratus anterior, which is basically the muscles kind of under your chest next to your core, you can see there poking through the stringer, very, very striated as well, which is good, and side delts as well. So nice to notice these small changes coming through. And that's another thing that I do like about filming the sessions. I just get to reflect on how the physique was affected by certain foods, body weights, trainings, etc. And then ultimately from that, I can then build more of a encyclopedia of what works for me and then also what doesn't. So hopefully that makes sense. And for those of you guys that do record your sets, even if it's just once a week, twice a week, you should hopefully then notice over the course of the months, you then start to build up a nice library and an understanding of what you're doing well, what you might need to improve on. And yeah, it just should be a good option for most people. So I would encourage you guys, especially if it's a big compound lift or something which you are struggling with, or even if you're not struggling with it, but you want to improve it, such as a bench press, a squat, a deadlift, even a bent over row or a heavy lat pull down. If you watch the clips back and, try and reflect on it yourself, or even ask someone else for feedback, it's much easier for them to watch that. Even if they're not your coach, it could just be a friend. It's just easier to analyze that video versus your subjective view of the exercise, especially because sometimes you won't even have a mirror. Other times it will just be a little bit of a struggle to try and actually see what you're doing, because realistically, if you're pushing yourself to the absolute limit, it's difficult to sometimes stand there and analyze every single bit of your workout and your form. It's actually after the session where you can sit down level-headed, relaxed, and think, right, how did this go? Is there anything that I can improve? And I know for some people that might sound super technical. I'm not saying that you should do that every single session, etc. But I'm just saying, if there is something which you are really trying to improve and you've got a goal that you're trying to get towards, then by all means, stick the camera up, film the set, and go from there basically, and utilize that to your advantage. So I think here I then moved back onto a lat pull down, which is actually a really good example. I haven't actually watched this session all the way through today, so I didn't actually remember that I'd done this. But yeah, like I said, it's nice for me to then drop the weight, still go heavy for sure, but drop the weight by a lot compared to that first set, and switch up the attachment, going really nice and wide here. You can see I'm leaning back even less so here, and the set is even slower. The weight is even lighter and the reps are even higher. So overall, a completely different set to the one that I did before. And honestly, if I really wanted to, I would argue that there's nothing wrong with me going back and doing more neutral grip pull downs. I just think that personally, this is probably more beneficial, because a slight change in the exercise there, especially when I've already done, I think it was 3 crazy sets at the start, does just seem like a good idea. But again, it just depends on what your preference is. And ultimately, if you are enjoying the session more and if you're more motivated to do that exercise, realistically, you are going to probably execute it better. So yeah, just something to think about there in terms of exercise selection and exercise rotations within a workout. Try and make it work for you, because, it will benefit you in the long run. Even if you push through for a few weeks, ultimately, eventually, you are going to either hit a physical level of fatigue and need to deload, or mentally your mind's just not going to be in it. So if you've got a coach, or if you've got someone that's looking at your program, just try and be honest with them. There's some sessions, some exercises where realistically you are just going to have to stick it out. But overall, hopefully, you guys should be enjoying your workouts. So if anyone does need any coaching advice, head over to my Instagram, which is at GBFITUK. The link's in the description, same as my YouTube, all nice and easy to follow. And drop me a message on there, and basically I can help you guys out a little bit with some advice. Or if you actually want proper coaching, then you can apply in the link in my bio. So you can drop me a voice note, you can send me a message, or even just drop a comment below and I'll try and get back to you guys somehow. But yeah, finishing off this video here with a iPhone check-in, because the camera actually died. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video, which I'm not actually sure what it is, so we'll see. But yeah, take it easy. The only way is up.
So my camera battery has died. I've just literally bought a multi-pack with chargers and all that sort of stuff, so it shouldn't be happening again. But before my phone runs out of storage, let's get a quick physique check at the end, which is a shame that I can't get on the camera, because obviously the quality is a lot better, but so second day of the bulk today. I'm still fasted because I've only put my calories up by a little bit, so taking it slow, but no carbs, no glycogen, still good. Obviously we'll have a bit more carbs in me than normal because I've obviously had a few more calories yesterday night, but it's been a good now sort of 14-15 hours that I've been fasted.